Okay, folks, I just want to bring us back to the main stage. And my primary focus was to try to be on time. And I did put 8:30 as the time that we would conclude. So I just have a few closing remarks, and so does Mr. Adams. So if you don't mind bearing with us for just a few more minutes, and then we'll adjourn for the evening. But it's been a really wonderful opportunity for us to witness parents talking amongst themselves, engaging in this difficult topic, and to be so enthusiastic about how we can all work together to make sure that our sons at Loyola and our sons and daughters in life are best prepared to navigate the world that they're going into and that they inhabit right now. So I just want a few things that Loyola we can say as a school about how we address some of these topics, and I'll try to be as brief as possible, just a few things. One thing I want you to note is I have a chance to talk to a lot of people in my job, and students are some of them, most of them, but also parents. And just this morning, I spoke to Father Barber. One of the things that he shared with me that was not in any way rehearsed, he just brought it up. And he said, this is what is on, I was talking about tonight, so this is what is on their consciences. He says, I hear confessions from hundreds of students during reconciliation services, during the school year, at retreats, maybe just students who go to see him. And he says, more than anything else, more than the vaping, more than things with their girlfriends, more than things with their parents and conflicts that they experience in life, he says, what they are able to access and witness to online is the thing that they talk about the most in those sacred moments. And it hit me. It really did. It struck me as something powerful that I just felt compelled to share with you tonight. So that's from Father Stephen Barber just this morning. Now on Tuesday, I met with my Conciliere team, I call them. These are my team of 10 seniors who I pull together once every 6 weeks, and we sit down and we have donuts and we talk about what's going on at school. They come from all different backgrounds. They have different sort of ways of approaching Loyola High School. They're all very smart, but they all are smart in different ways. And they share with me the honest truth about life at Loyola. And we talk about things related to school and academics. But I brought up this night, I said, what would you want your parents to know, or what do you think your parents would ask in this situation? And the thing that they kept coming back to was the idea of trust. How do you build trust with your sons? And I actually asked them to write down some questions that they thought would be useful. Some of the questions that are on these sheets actually came from your sons, from seniors at our school, who thought these would be the right kinds of questions to ask the parents. They also mentioned very concretely that they don't have a problem with rules, but they want the rules to be consistent and they want them to be discussed. And what they really, again, kept going back to was this idea of trust and how parents and students can establish that bond of trust. And so I know that we talked about a lot of things tonight, and hopefully some of these questions and some of the conversations that you had at your tables can help give you a window into how you can begin to have that conversation about establishing lines of trust with your sons, even if it means establishing a contract for technology, even if it means talking to your sons about why you turn the Wi-Fi off at 10 p.m. or why you don't cross the threshold of the bedroom with a phone in your hand. The rules don't bother them. The conversation about trust and the feeling of being untrustworthy does bother them. So when you make those rules, please have a conversation around it as well. And this is important to me too. There was an artist who took a picture of people all over society on devices, and then he removed the devices. And the students brought this up too. How well are we as adults modeling behavior for them that is meaningful? You know, Chris Mulligan mentioned, how often are we getting out into nature and unplugging? And when we look around in society, we don't too often see it. And the students don't see the faculty doing it, the faculty don't see the students doing it, I don't know if the students see the parents doing it. But I do think it's important for us to take a note of this slide here and see these photos and how ridiculous it looks. And this is oftentimes what your sons may see when they come home and see, you know, their friends or their siblings or their moms and dads on the couch. What Loyola does is we try to be proactive. I mean, this is an example of that. Having Ben Tracy speak to our sophomores today and freshmen today at homeroom is an example of that. These two posters are things that you will see in every classroom around Loyola High School. Responsible use, protocols for use of technology, and the all-important think before you tweet, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. Okay? And it's exactly what Chris was talking about with that self-reflection mode. The idea that we don't pause before hitting submit or send. And we, as a school that tries to be countercultural and who values self-awareness and self-reflection, it is so crucial that they stop to think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And those are the things that they should ask themselves before putting it online. And then they know the rules with responsible use policies that they signed, the handbook. They know what's expected of them at school. And we have very strong firewalls, and we have a very strong no gaming policy on our campus. And then the other thing that they said, the seniors said to me, was, it's not all bad. And by no means should anyone be walking out of here thinking, oh my gosh, my son is addicted to the internet. Right? That's not the goal of tonight. The goal of tonight is to acknowledge that there's a lot of good that comes from social media use, the internet. Their devices are essential to their homework, to their interaction with each other. When you take their devices away, you take away a piece of their identity, and they talk about that, and they hate it when I take their phones too, and I do. Okay? But that is a part of their line to the outside world. It's how they do their homework. All of that is a part of it. I actually spoke to the head of the gaming club, and he said that line about how collaborative and how big of a community it is for he and his friends, and they solve problems together. So again, even the risks of gaming, but there's also the benefits of it. So let's look at the 88% that really do report having positive feedback. And then lastly, we are focusing on wellness in a lot of different ways in our future at Loyola. Many of you have probably heard about our app called Stop It, which allows people to report those things that make them feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or that they want to assist friends if they perceive a problem. And then there's also the strategic plan that we are working on, which will include a deep dive into what does it mean in our community to have wellness, for there to be healthy young men. And we call all this pure personalis, the care of the individual, the holistic student. That is what we are about, and it is what we continue to strive for. So those are the comments that I wanted to share with you that I thought are important. I hope that you got quite a lot from the conversations among one another, which is much more than I could give you. And I just want to finally close with Mr. Adams, who has just a few words.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Ben, Chris, Annie, and Megan. And it's not lost on me that I am standing between you and driving home, so I do appreciate your time. My name is Jamal Adams. I am an alum of this place, and so class of 1990, but maybe more importantly for tonight, I am the father of an alum. My son graduated here in 2015. My daughter graduated from Marlboro in 2014, and now they're both college grads and young adults. And even I found myself tonight taking so many different notes about how our children are interacting with each other on social media and things of that sort. So I do think my role, though, is to talk a little bit about, again, as Dan said, how we at Loyola are trying to be a bit more countercultural. And I actually think it's really at the root of our mission, and that our mission calls for us to encounter. In fact, Pope Francis says encounter is the idea of being fearless, to look beyond our own selves and look towards other folks, particularly their suffering. And so in my role as a Director of Equity and Inclusion, it is important that with the team, Frank, Dan, and my colleagues here at Loyola, that we're trying to produce programs that allow our kids, our boys, to be in relationship with each other. And that relationship hopefully is unplugged, to be in conversation. And I really do believe, right, that at the root of a relationship is the sharing of narrative, the sharing of story, the sharing of lived experiences, and that if I can be empathetic and compassionate, if I can understand what it's like to walk in your shoes, that then my expansion of what is my worldview is going to allow me to know when I'm in the fringes or in the wrong, or I can ask questions. I always talk about this. I also teach African American studies, and I always say, like, what hope historians are doing are having compassionate inquiry, that we're looking at how folks have lived and the historical patterns that bring us to today with the compassion of what were the systems of those times. And so, again, we were also intentional. I know when we were helping to develop our office and why we really wanted to focus on the words equity and inclusion was that when we think about equity, at least from my standpoint, right, I think of equality is that everyone gets the same. Well, equity is about getting everybody what they need. And I think that's an important part of our ethos at Loyola, is trying to deliver what everyone needs. And then obviously inclusion is about trying to have a balance of people, of stories, and experiences at the table. And so what I would suggest for all of you all, and I don't know where you are on the spectrum, but there are many, many programs here that nourish the souls of your sons. Our retreats, both our freshman retreat that we just had, we had an experience out of my office. We do the freshman community walk, in which they get to see this neighborhood, hopefully from a different perspective of what they may assume. Our sophomores this year are going to spend some time with special needs athletes and a unified gaming opportunity this spring. And then our juniors and seniors, obviously, with the retreats and some of the other things that we do, and even some of the programs under my office called Words Matter and things of that sort. We try to engage them in conversations that look at some of these things, some of these difficult conversations, have them with their peers, both here at Loyola and the wider Catholic school environment here. And I am in conversation with ADL about bringing some of their training on to our campus as well, for both our faculty and for our students. And so what I would suggest is, and I'll finish up the night by saying, is that with our leadership on our campus, we are very, very mindful of the world that our sons are growing up into and becoming men in, and we most certainly want them to be men of compassion and conscience and courage, right? The courage to stand up for what is right, and definitely to push against what is wrong. And thank you. Again, as Dan said earlier, we really appreciate you giving the time. We know that community is not easy at our school, but to be here for tonight, to hear these things are only going to help our community and most importantly our young men get better. So again, thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, so just before we go, I do have some thanks. I want to thank Mr. Kozakowski and Father Goethals for making it possible for this night to happen. Thanks to those school leaders I want to particularly thank Corinne Chamberlain and Genevieve Hernandez and the Mothers Guild volunteers who helped with the food and with the setup and with the check-in that made the logistics run smoothly. I hope we made it for an easy night coming in from LA traffic. And then I also, of course, want to thank our excellent presenters tonight, Mr. Ben Tracy, Chris Mulligan, Megan Levels, and Andy Ortega. Thank you to my colleague Jamal, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to email us, talk to us when you see us, and check out the video again online when we post it. I will send back out an email with maybe some feedback information. I hope that you enjoyed the night, and thank you again for coming. Get home safely.